Today's guest is Shelby Van Zwol, entrepreneur, marketer, and founder and CEO of Mornington-based Chain Social, one of Australia's leading digital marketing agencies specialising in fashion, lifestyle, and beauty. Shelby is not only known for generating her groundbreaking results for her clients, she's also earned the reputation of the best boss in Australia. In today's episode, you'll learn about the journey that Shelby has faced in launching Chain Social, the incredible results that she's achieved for her clients over the past 9 years, and the challenges that almost took the business to the ground in the opening 3 years of trade. We'll dive into why performance-based digital marketing is so crucial for brands today, not just in beauty, fashion, and lifestyle industries of which Shelby works in, but across the board in any industry. We'll also touch on why Chain is set apart as a leading marketing agency, and how Shelby has been able to generate over $1 billion worth in revenue for her clients over the past 9 years. Plus, Shelby will share her insights to the future of marketing, actionable guidance for anyone wanting to start in marketing today, and the key lessons that she's learned over her career as a marketer, business owner, and entrepreneur. Let's welcome Shelby Van Zwol to the pod. Shelby,
yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm good. I feel terrible to admit that I was late because I feel like I'm always late to everything, but I'm feeling good. It's a beautiful day, had the long weekend, and I'm ready to talk my favorite thing in the world about marketing. So
that's always a good thing, and
yes.
It's the time to do it. But before we get to the marketing side of things, I want to reel back time a little bit.
Yeah.
Start from the start.
Yes.
What compelled you to launch your own marketing agency and go out on your own?
Okay, so this is a really good question, and I feel like depending on the day of the week, you'll get a slightly different answer. But I guess at the crux of it was probably two main things. One, I kind of fell into my business, and I'm going to give context to that in a minute. And I don't ever believe anything's like ever luck. I think I just was genuinely meant to run my business, but I didn't know that I was meant to run it. So I fell into it. But two, when I finished university, because I did study, I feel like a decade ago it was really important to study. And I tell everyone now, by the way, and I want to preface this, that I don't believe you need to go to university if you want to work in this marketing or multimedia industry, but I guess that's a podcast for another day. But I went to university, and when I finished university, I had an internship opportunity at Channel 9, and I did that for 6 weeks. And it was really fun because it's obviously an environment that I'd never been in. So I was like, this is fun. And they offered me a junior position at the end of my internship, which under all circumstances, most people would say, that's an incredible opportunity, you should take it, like got a PR role, brilliant. But I live on the peninsula, and I was this 21-year-old brat, shall I say, who was like, I'm not going on the train for an hour and a half a day. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, my life can be better spent doing other things. Like, I was young and I knew I wanted to work in marketing and PR. Obviously, I'd done the degree, I did my internship, but I also was very aware of how lucky I was to still live at home. I didn't have a lot of overhead. So I was like, why am I not just having a bit of fun with my time? So I declined that role, to my parents' demise. They were like, you are a brat. Like, you're crazy. Like, why would you not do that? Like, that will open up doors for you. But at the time, I just didn't want to do that. And so I then went on to work in my parents' family business. I'd actually worked in that business since I was 10 years old. And there's imagery of me working in like a Disney truck. They basically ran sand sculpting events around Australia. And so I worked at that from when I was a young child, teenager. But I then, when I finished university, worked in like a marketing function in that business. It was literally me and mum. We were the team. So I shouldn't say a function because it was just me and my mum. Sure. But I did that, and I really wanted to do a great job. It's a family business. I wanted to make sure that I was able to add value. And so at that point in time, I love that. There's always
something that happens.
Like the other day when I was like filming and I thought I was having a stroke. But anyway, I long story short, worked in that business. I wanted to make impact. So I started to ask my mum if I could run Facebook ads because I was teaching myself on YouTube at the time. And so I ran these Facebook ads. The business did exceptionally well. It had the biggest season it's ever had. Everyone was saying they saw us on Facebook. And this was at the beginning of Facebook. Like, we're talking 2014, as really in not the beginning days of like Facebook, but the beginning of Facebook ads. So this was very early days. We were getting clicks for 1 cent, like crazy. But we did really well out of that. And the flow-on effect was that local businesses started to ask my mum, who was doing her marketing because
I'm
they were
impressed.
seeing it and they're like, wow, she's really digitally like appearing. Like we grew our Instagram following to 50,000 people.
Wow.
Like this was obviously in the beautiful days of Instagram when the algorithm wasn't, dire. But I was really passionate about it. And so these doors started opening for me on the side. And obviously I loved my family business that I worked in and I was in that role and I really enjoyed it. But these doors where they were like, extra income, because in my mind I was like, if I could just contract to these businesses after hours, it would really help. My husband and I wanted to buy our first house. We were saving and I was like, this could be an extra $300 or $400 a week. That's a lot of money. So I said yes to these opportunities to assist these small businesses, local small businesses. And I'm so glad I did because I was really toying on it for a while, but my intuition said, just do it because what's the worst thing? If it doesn't work out, you can just go back to working like just your full-time role.
Yeah.
And so off the back of that, though, within 4 weeks of starting my freelance contracting, which at the time was under my mum's ABN because I didn't even have an ABN yet, like it was a whole process. But at the time, within 4 weeks, I had 10 clients.
Wow.
And I always think back to the fact, like I said, I never set out, like I was never like, I'm going to launch a marketing agency. What I did know is I was very passionate about marketing and especially the transformative kind of effects digital marketing can have. And so I'd seen it in my parents' business and I was able to apply it to these local small businesses, which was very fulfilling being a local myself. But yeah, after 4 weeks, I had 10 clients and I basically had to sit down and go, I'm earning now the same income doing these 10 clients as I am working full time. I really had this this moment in time where I was at crossroads. It's like I've either got to pull back and be like, I'll just go back to working full time, or I've got to quit my full-time job and pursue this, which was felt risky at the time also because when you're contract and you're freelance, you don't have a lot of security.
Yeah.
You don't know when, like, if a client's going to leave. Like, it was a bit risky. But my husband, I should context, was an apprentice at the time, landscaping. So, like, we were very tight on funds at this period in time. But in my gut, I was like, I have nothing to lose. I'm literally like in my early 20s. I'm going to go for it. And I'm glad I did because within 3 months, I'd hired my first employee. And within another 6 months, we had a little office at the back of Main Street. And I guess the agency evolved out of just demand, right? So I always think of a few things that were the recipe for success. I think it was time. You know how there's always like a right time to enter a market? Like I obviously entered that agency model, that digital contracting model before a lot of other people did. So I remember doing some reporting on agencies when I first started my business it was officially a business in 2016. And at the time, reports were saying there was like 200 digital agencies in Australia. Like that was like, and at that point in time, I wasn't so much an agency. I was more like a freelancer with a couple of side chicks, if you think about it. But there were agencies, that 20 and 30 staff, and there was only 200 of them. And we did some research only at Christmas time in 2024, and there's now like 9,500.
Wow.
So just to give you
Really
the context, of the 9 years, like I was like an early adopter, as they would say. And so that had, I think, tremendous effect on our success because we were kind of early to the party, right? We started to build out our folio, we built out our skill set, we built out our reputation in market from that. But at the same time, I also feel that the other recipe to success was definitely my genuine passion and interest in marketing. Like I found it so addictive. Like I always joke to my family that they should be so grateful that I became addicted to marketing and not illicit substances. Because I was like, I just had this addictive personality where I was like, I love this. I'm watching people's lives change that I'm working with. Like they're getting better business through their doors, and it was so like fulfilling. And so that passion obviously then combined with being an early adopter, and also the thing that I felt worked in my favor back in the day was that I was also a female. So at this point in time, a lot of the big agencies and even contractors were men, and there's such a place for that, but there was a very like male dominated space. There was a lot of SEO agencies, PPC, like a lot of that type of business, and I kind of came in and was like, oh, you want like a feminine touch to this? So the businesses we then attracted were businesses who were like, oh my God, you'll understand our customer.
Yeah.
And so that worked in our favor. And that, again, has been another benefit for us because it's like a niche. We've like maintained a niche since the beginning. Well, not so much since the beginning. We did work with more businesses in the beginning, but, at least for the last 5 years, we've been really niche down. So the agency model kind of came about for me by accident, but also when I look back, I'm like, it was meant to be, you know? Who would have thought though? But I feel like I've always been entrepreneurial. Like when I was at not high school, when I was at university, I wanted to make extra money. So I started importing jewelry and I would do jewelry businesses, jewelry, like what are they called? Like shopping experiences at home.
Sure.
And I'd make like $3,000 every time I did that. Like I was always finding, like I'd go to the op shop, I'd thrift clothes, I'd put them on, I'd sell them online on eBay because that was like the period of eBay. So I feel like I'd always been like somewhat entrepreneurial or very driven to like have some extra money to do the things I wanted because I always knew I wanted to, buy a house and do all these types of things. So I guess I was like just finding my way. But yeah, now 9 years on, I'm like, I am where I'm meant to be. That's what I feel like anyway.
Yeah.
And I love it.
So that moment where you've got to decide, am I going to go all in or am I going to stick in the family business?
Yes.
You said you felt a little bit of risk involved there.
Absolutely.
What were the other feelings involved? Was there a bit of hesitancy, not wanting to let down the family?
Absolutely. And the funny thing you say there, right? I was like, I feel like I'm going to, like my mum's business, like will it do as well next summer? Like what if someone can't replace me in the same capacity? Not in an egotistical way, but I was like, no one, when it's your family, you work so hard for your family, right? Like I would go above and beyond. I'd be working after hours, early morning, all those things. And I would never be like, I need overtime because it was just like a family thing. But I guess I did provide my parents an ultimatum. I said, like, I am leaving, so I'm really sorry, but you can come and become a client. So they were actually a client of my business. So
Fantastic.
they kind of were still able to tap into, and I gave them mates rates for a very long time. So they did very well out of that. I think, risk was obviously a really big consideration. And whenever I meet anyone now who is like on the fence about starting a business, I'll always say to them, like, do it. The worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to fail and you're going to either have really great learnings and then you'll apply them to have a stronger business next time, or you'll never have regret. Like I think my biggest like motto with everything I do is like I don't ever want to have regret because regret is the most painful emotion and you feel regret in all different types of situations. And I never wanted to get to my senior years and look back and be like, I should have done more. So I think that was kind of like a part of the risk, yes, was there, but the reward was also there. And I was like, if I do this and it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't matter. I can go and get a marketing job full time.
Yeah.
You know, I can apply my skills in other businesses. If my parents don't need me anymore, I'll find another job. Like, and obviously this was again over a decade ago. So there was like not as much of like a cost of living, inflation crisis. There was more jobs in the market. And everything's obviously, you know, have to have context. But yeah, I did feel like I was going to let my parents down, but they were able to come across and be a client. So they had great service.
Positive outcome either way.
Positive outcome. Yeah, I was like, great, this is good. Came out well for me and them.
So 4 clients within the first 6 weeks and then hired a first team member 3 months in.
Yeah.
And then compounded from there.
Yeah.
The first 12 months of the business.
Yes.
There still would have been some challenges.
Oh,
so what were those
so
challenges
many.
and how did you overcome those?
Okay, I love this. I always think to myself when people ask me about Chain, because now they only see what it is now, but they haven't seen like the near on decade of so many errors and so many mistakes where you're like, oh, won't do that again. I think probably in the first year of business, like I had never run a business before. For context, like I didn't even know what GST was. I had to obviously get my accountant involved to work out if I needed to pay BAS yet, which I didn't, sorry, not pay BAS, have a lodge of BAS yet, which I actually didn't for the first year because we obviously earned under the threshold. But I think the things that were the hardest for me in the first year, like I said, not having run a business before, you don't realize the level of admin required in running a business, first of all. Second thing, because I'd never run a business, I don't think I was great at finance.
Yep.
Like I don't think I understood having a kitty for a rainy day, because in the first year, although we had this really great momentum of signing on clients, we're also losing clients because our systems and processes weren't tight. So there were things falling through the cracks, and I'll always openly talk about this. So now in 2025, I always am such a big believer that everything has to have a procedure, a process. Like nothing goes through my agency now without being a complete streamlined or efficient process so that anyone could come in and do the job. Like there's a process for it. Because I guess if we talk about even outside of the first year, the first couple of years, we also had staff leave. And so then the clients had made these really great relationships with the staff, and then the staff would leave, and then the clients would leave because they liked the staff. And so I just worked out, I guess, in that first few years, what were the biggest risk factors in my business, like what was going to determine its success and what was going to determine its failure. And one of the key things that was going to determine its failure was not having client retention.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have client retention, you don't have income. If you don't have income, you can't sustain the business model, you can't pay your staff. And so I think in the first year, like I said, because I hadn't run a business as well, there were moments, I actually remember, this might have even been about 2 years into my business. I remember I was getting married overseas, and we were catching our flight home from Thailand because I got married in Thailand. And I remember looking in the business bank account, we had $1,500 in the business bank account. And at this point in time, like I had, I think 3 or 4 staff. And like I personally didn't have a huge savings kitty. Like I was very fortunate and privileged that my parents contributed towards my wedding. And again, I had a wedding before overseas weddings were a thing, so it was very cheap. It was actually cheaper to get married in Thailand than it was Australia.
Wow.
So like
times have changed.
Times have massive. Like we had the cheapest wedding, and it was so beautiful and so fun, like a big week party. But yeah, another story. But yeah, I remember looking at the business bank account and being like, okay. And I remember like tearing up and writing to my mum and being like, I think I have to close my business and just be a freelancer. Like I can sustain our clients and I'll just keep the income, and we won't then need the overheads of staff. We won't need the overheads of like rent and all these programs and all these things. And I remember mum was like, you've just got to go with what feels right. Like if that's what feels right to you, then yeah, close up your business.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think back now and I feel like maybe my mind has like kind of put those memories back because I don't have clear memory of exactly what changed, because I think it was a really traumatic time. And maybe traumatic's probably a little bit too big of a word, but it was a very stressful time. So I feel like my body's like, you don't need to remember that. Like that's the bad days. But I just remember coming home and hustling my ass off. I was like, I'm going to get on the phone. I'm going to find clients. I'm going to do this. And I also used that period of time to see those biggest opportunities in my business, which was like, we cannot have clients leave because we can't service them correctly. Like we have the skill set, but we're failing to do the service providing.
Sure.
And so I worked on that. And yeah, obviously now I'm so glad I stuck it out, but it was very hard. I always talk about the fact that even in those early years, my husband and I had managed to buy a property. Again, everything is it's so interesting talking about a decade ago, because again, property, like we bought our house for $300,000.
Yeah.
Right. And
big difference.
It's just like, again, everything's timing. And so it sounds like everything sounds like luck, but it was just like my life and my timing. But I remember so vividly every single week that my mum would have to come around and deliver us groceries. And I know how privileged that is, but we literally could not afford groceries. Like if we would go to the grocery store, our account would go into overdraft. Like we had no savings. Like I would be filling up my car with like $15 of petrol at a time. And that was one, because I was putting everything back into my business and my business was chewing it up. Like it is expensive to run a business. And also my husband was still an apprentice. So our combined income was like very low. And those years were very hard. But we used those as building blocks. So I was like, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That also doesn't work. And let's fix it. Let's find the way. I'm very much a problem solver. And so I was like, we're going to problem solve. And so we built out our solutions to all the problems. We bettered our servicing. We bettered our pricing. We realized our pricing was so off. Like it was hardly covering wages. And I'm like, how am I ever going to make a profit if we do this? And the business needs a profit to grow. I think people don't realize that, is that you actually need leftover cash after you pay yourself or after you pay your rent or after you pay your staff to then afford to take a risk on the next staff member. Like it's this constant, like I look at Chain now and yes, I have a big team, but we're still constantly reinvesting into the business. And the risk actually gets larger as your business gets bigger.
Yeah.
Right? Like it gets monumentally larger in all facets, legal, financial, cash flow. Like you've got these humans that rely on you. Anyway, so my problems that I had in the early days have kind of still crept into the latest year, but in a different capacity, right?
Sure.
So early days, I was learning how to run a business. I was learning how to do finance. And nowadays I'm learning how to make sure that we maintain cash flow and meet all of our kind of business goals. So yeah. Sorry, I just realised I've just yapped at you for like 10 minutes.
That was all good. But that was 2 to 3 years into the business at that stage where you had all those real issues coming through.
Oh, it was so bad. It was probably like, I was so skinny because I just was so stressed all the time.
Just focused.
Just so focused. Like I didn't want to eat. I would probably pull like 100-hour weeks every week. Like I work 7 days a week without a doubt because I'd be working the weekend on the business and then during the week on the clients. It was very, very, I think about it now and I'm like, but I also feel like I had a conversation with someone today. I had an appointment with someone. I was just talking to them and we were talking about business and this concept of delayed gratification, or like, the iceberg, popping out the water, but everything underneath. So people often always will see the finish line, like where the business is now, but they don't see what happens in the meantime. And I think running a business, or at least a successful business, is really, really hard. And you've got to have like this almost thick skin and this ability to wear the really hard times to get to the other side. It sounds really cliche, but I truly believe like if you're not passionate about your business won't survive. And it's not because you don't have a good offering to market. It's because you will not have the grit in you to actually survive when it goes very dark. Very, very dark, whether that's financial, legal, whatever it is. Like you'll just give up. You'll just throw the towel in. That's not to say sometimes I don't want to throw the towel in. I think actually a few years ago I used to come home every 6 months and say to my husband, all right, I'm shutting up shop. I'm over it. I'm done. And I think it was just because I would get to this this build up of pressure and I'd be like, I just would love to go work for someone and just like
not have to worry about the stress.
Yeah, and just do marketing. And then I'd be like, no, stop it. Like get your bad thought out of your head and like you've come this far, like why would you just throw the towel in? So it's very much a mental game, but yeah, the first few years were very hard. And I think about that, the fact that I was in the right time. Can you imagine if I was trying to start the same business now? It's even harder.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things that I've learned, and that's why I often try, like I have a lot of industry connections, people running agencies. I'm not threatened by other people wanting to have a really successful commercial, digital, creative agency, whatever, because I feel like there are millions of small businesses in Australia. Like I think there's like 2 million small businesses in Australia. So there's plenty of work for everyone to go around. And I often like to kind of share some of my learnings because I wish someone would have taught me. If someone had given me all of the lessons before I started, I would have skipped 3 or 4 years of hell, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
So anyway.
So 9 years into the future.
Yeah.
When you look back on where you were 1, 2, 3 years into business, did you have a vision for what it's like now at Chain?
I love this question. So one of my girls, Bonnie, has been with me since the beginning, right? She's had babies and gone through all different roles in the business, but she's literally been with Chain since we were like just this small little tiny 1 and 2 person team. And it's funny because recently we signed to build a head office for our business, right? We've been paying rent for a long time. I'm like, we're going to now build our own space. And I'm very aesthetic, so I want to build a really lovely space.
Sure.
And it's funny because Bonnie and I sat down in front of like the group because I was showing the girls what this HQ is going to look like and all the fun things that come with it. And she was like almost tearing up because she's like, I'm just so proud of you because this is exactly what we would sit down and talk about. Like we would sit down in the early days with like a A3 piece of paper and map out what the team would look like. And when the team got to a certain size, the fun things we could do for team bonding and like the services we could provide and who dream clients would be. And I would think I was always very like set on what the business would offer, as in like we would service fashion, beauty, lifestyle businesses. In the early days, we obviously had a few that sat outside of that. We worked with like Bay City Holden and a few other businesses, but I worked out there was this common denominator when a business would thrive under our service was when it was a brand that we would use, shop, or love. So we have this kind of saying now where if a brand comes to us and wants to work with us, we ask ourselves, would we use this brand? Do we shop this brand? Or do we love this brand? And a perfect example would be like we work with a diamond retailer. Now, obviously, we don't shop the brand currently because the pieces are $20,000, but we love their products. So we can passionately sell it because we would love to buy the products. And so I think that's been a really successful part of our vision was to always really dial in on who we are and who we service. So who we are is a female-driven digital and creative agency for fashion, beauty, lifestyle brands. We care about aesthetics, so do our clients. That marries in beautifully. But yeah, if you speak to Bonnie, the only thing that hasn't actually come to fruition from my original kind of big plan, my big dream that I was like, oh my God, if we make it here, this is wild, was to have a rooftop pool.
The rooftop pool.
I wanted a rooftop
at the
pool.
office.
Yeah. I was like, I want a rooftop pool so we can clock off on Friday, like swim, have cocktails on the rooftop. Like, I think because I've really tried to build my business, like chain in market from an outside perspective is like an industry leading creative digital agency. But on the inside, I've tried to build like a family, and I've invested back into my business like it was my family.
Sure.
So we do lots of fun things like team bonding and Christmas parties, but we also love to provide amenities that are outside of the norm. So like having a rooftop pool would be like so chain spec, we could call it, but we obviously just can't make that happen. So
Haven't included it in the plans?
no, maybe I can get a blow up pool. I put a blow up one on the roof or something, but in the new office, though, lots of the things that I've always wanted to have, like having a beauty station. You know, my whole team is female, and not intentionally. Like, I feel like this topic comes up a lot. People are like, why just females in your team? And we've worked with so many incredible, like, contractors that are men, but it's just that our clients are female products, like, basically. And so the applicants we get for our roles are 99.9% females. And I think it's just because the applicants on the outside would be like, well, I don't know if I want to work for a business where I have to try and market fake tan. Like, I don't know. You know, I just think about it all the time.
You have a bit more insight around the product.
Yeah,
and you have a stake in the product.
Yeah, especially when you're running digital ads. Like, you have to be talking to the buying psyche. Like, you have to be like, this is why. So, digressing, I've got an all-female team. We'll have a beauty station when they can do their hair and makeup. We're going to have, like, a naturopath come. Like, all these fun things. So, yeah, everything I envisioned for the business has come to fruition. We always wanted to be boutique in size. And there's many years, like in 2020, in COVID, I could have tripled our business without a doubt, because the digital marketing space boomed, because all of these traditional businesses now had to sell online.
Yeah.
So they're like, we need an agency. But my kind of coming back to that concept of chain being a family, my number one priority was to safety net my whole entire team. So like, I didn't want to risk it and take on all these new clients at the expense that the business tumbled down and people lost their jobs. Because I'm like, this is not the time.
You don't lose your job in COVID.
To play with people's livelihoods.
Yeah.
And I take so much, in fact, almost a sickening amount of pressure on for that. Like, I feel like I actually need to care for 25 people's livelihoods. So I can't make decisions that would be irrational. And there are a lot of businesses out there that make stupid decisions and then they go, oh, well, we'll just fire some staff. I just couldn't do that. So my process was very much like, we're going to maintain our current clients, maintain our current team as best as physically possible. Like, obviously some of our services had to get shrunk massively down, like studio photography. Like, we couldn't shoot in the studio because we couldn't have models and things like that. So we then tried to train those type of team members on different services. Like, it was a process, right? But I think, yeah, the business to where it is today is still boutique, because my vision has always been to be boutique, to have that. I want my team to still know me by my name. I want my team to still like feel like they're in this kind of intimate environment, and it's not like this big corporatized, like, I don't know, like, I just don't want it to turn out like a big corporate business that
Soulless.
Like Chain has so much soul, and it's like, you can't explain it. I actually would say it's very wholesome, and I think if you get too big, you lose that. And also, I love to do bougie things. Like, if you've seen, I love to take my staff on crazy Christmas parties and do crazy things. If you have 50 staff, it starts to become unattainable. Yeah. Like, I can't take them all interstate and party with them. If there's 50 of them, there's 25 of them, sure, we can make that happen. So,
yes,
yeah.
Definitely. And you have done some pretty crazy things. I saw there's news reports of the tattoos and
I know.
the overseas trips, Europe or something?
Yeah, we did a Europe content tour. We're off to Fiji in a few weeks. And I think that is, though, part of the wildness. Like, I just think that's my personality type coming through the business. Yeah. But it's like, we work very hard. So it's just like the reward that we get for working hard. Like, my girls are amazing. So we're going to just always treat them with like nice benefits, you know? Yeah.
And it's a lovely team. I can see it in the reflection when we work together.
Yeah.
You see it in the staff. Everyone's happy. Everyone's friendly.
They are.
I'm very proud of it. Difference.
People ask me, like, always, what is like the one thing I'm most proud of? So from one lens, commercially, I'm proud that I've built a business that is like self-sufficient, has a great team, etc. But the most intrinsic thing that I value the most is the culture I've created with my team. Because I'm like, this is very rare to have an all-female environment where everyone gets equal opportunity, no one's being bitchy, Everyone can have babies and still have a corporate career. Everyone can go get their head out and come to work. Like I've really kind of tried to modernize the day-to-day life for my team. And I'm really proud of that they feel the same. Like we do touch-base surveys every 6 months, anonymous with our team. So our HR will send it out because I want the good, the bad, the ugly. I want someone to say, I don't like that we do whip calls with clients at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday. I want everyone's feedback to the most minute, like we want different flavoured chips in the snack cupboard. Like I want every bit of feedback because that's the only way you can get better. I have this mentality that nothing's ever perfect. And that striving for perfectionism is a part of my personality. And so I'm always wanting to improve. And so like when the girls give this feedback, like it is so positive. And it's like so many of them being like, I'm going to die at Chain. Like I'm going to literally be here forever because I love it so much. And that I'm so proud of that. Like that is just, and especially in our industry, like digital marketing, I saw a report the other day. It's like a 60% turnover every year.
Wow.
Right. We haven't lost a staff member in like a year and a half. Like we hold on to, I think we've got like, Chelsea was doing the stats the other day for me. I think we've got like an 80 or 90% staff retention, which is big in this space. This space is very fluid. People jump ship because they can take their skills to another agency. So you've got to make sure you've got an environment they want to stay in. And I am confident that we've created this space that's very safe and enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah, incredibly proud to own that. And
to lead it.
To lead it is another thing. To get to where you are now, it's one achievement.
Yes.
And that achievement came through because of the outstanding results that you can get for your clients.
Yes.
And a lot of it is based on the performance digital side of things.
Yep.
So why is that such an important area for brands to focus on?
Okay, I love this question and I will die on this hill. I just feel like performance marketing, the way that I best explain it, so performance marketing being, basically pay per click, paying your way to views, paying your way to eyeballs, paying your way to customer acquisition. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. There are people that want to buy from your brand or service, right? They require your brand or service. The only way to speed up the process of awareness, interest, and conversion is to put your brand in front of them where they are at all times, right? So whereby organic is a brilliant strategy, but it's a long game because you can't control who views your stories. Like you could have a reel go viral, but it could go viral in Mexico.
Yeah.
What benefit has that got to your business here?
Zero.
Right? And I think those metrics people get so obsessed. Like I need likes, I need views. It's like, no, what you actually need is people buying your service or your product. Like, let's forget about the vanity metric, right? I like to call it like the shiny object syndrome. People love to have fancy offices. People love to have fancy cars, even fancy marketing campaigns when they actually need to think what they need the most is purchases or enrollments or, service lead inquiries. Like there's just, so I guess off the back of that, the one thing that I have seen over the last decade time and time again work every single time for every single business is paid performance, because you can basically enforce so that your brand appears within 20 minutes to your audience. So you could be getting purchases that day, leads that day. What other marketing activity can do the same thing? Like immediate calls. Like you could put your business through Facebook ads, this local region, like say Mornington plus X amount of kilometers. You can find people you can target people who work in like marketing roles, small business owners, like whatever you feel is your niche. You can talk to them and you can talk to them today. So you can make them aware that your business exists. You can show them your folio. You can even send them like a lead magnet to download. You can get lead details. Like I get very passionate about this and I get very hot and bothered because I get so passionate. My body's like the histamine is through the roof. But yeah, it's just transformative. And the thing is, right, so I obviously have Chain and it's always quite rich to be talking about like, yeah, you should do performance marketing and telling people to spend money, right? But I also do it in my other businesses. So I have e-com businesses as well and that I own, and I use paid performance for all those businesses. Like what I speak, I also do, which I think is really important, right? And I see it from both sides of the coin. So I see how you've really got to consider every dollar you put into your business, because it is, like I said before, finances, cash flow is everything. So paid performance is without a doubt the most transformative. Like, yes, you can have great social media, but how can you determine the tangible value of that? Yes, you can have, a great website, but you can't see, well, I guess you can on a website if you're an e-com brand, you can see conversion rates, etc. But without a doubt, paid performance. So that's like Facebook ads, Google ads, Pinterest ads, TikTok ads, Reddit ads, Twitter, whatever channel you operate on, whatever makes sense to your business, having yourself appear there in a paid capacity puts you, number one, ahead of your competitors. Number two, it puts you in front of future buyers. And when done right, is very transformative. I think also like what I found, especially both rolling out paid performance for clients over the years, but even running marketing workshops on how to run these paid performance campaigns, I've worked out there are so many niches that are still untapped in Australia, and it blows my mind. We did a one-on-one workshop for a real estate company last year, and none of their competitors were on Facebook ads, not one of them.
Not one.
So when we presented it, I was like, you need to get to market. Again, it comes back to this conversation we've had today here about being an early adopter. Like people sit in the fence and go, oh, it's not for me, it's for e-com brands, or it's not for me because it's saturated. It's like, there is so much space still to win in that place, and I would highly recommend it always. I mean, we even use it for running our workshops. We get ticket sales through running ads that people didn't even know we existed, and now they do. So now they're like, okay, well, I'll come and listen to this Facebook ad masterclass because this sounds good.
Yeah.
And if we didn't use Meta ads, we'd probably have half the attendance of the room. Like, yes, we can use our organic social and our email to get sales, but we're also building out extra sales for our business, even through Meta ads and pay performance. So it's my number one recommendation. And I feel like it has a bad rep because a lot of people have tried to do it, but they've not done it properly. And so then they're like, Meta ads doesn't work. It's like, no, it does actually work, but you've got to do it properly.
Got to build the skill first.
Got to build the skill first, or find someone that's actually good at it. And I say that without trying to put anyone down, but there are a lot of cowboys in this space. Like people will say, oh, my cousin's brother's uncle did it for me on the weekend and he charged me $100 a week. It's like, you get what you pay for. Yeah. Like he's only probably been doing it for an hour a week for the last year. You need someone who's been doing it for 40 hours a week for the last decade.
Yes.
Like put it into perspective. And it's like any skill set, right? If you go to a doctor or a surgeon, a freshly graduated surgeon, you're probably not as likely to want to leave your life in the hands of that surgeon as someone who's in their 50s who's done it for 30 years.
Yeah.
Because it's not always even just about skill set, because you can definitely teach skill set, but it's also about implementation. So that surgeon's had 30 years of surgeries, this surgeon hasn't. So what if something goes wrong? What if we need to problem solve or troubleshoot? They're less likely to have that ability as someone with 30 years experience. And I feel like we've just gone on a tangent about surgeons, but you know, the analogy is there that there are some people who are really freaking brilliant at paid performance in this country, like hundreds, if not thousands of people. And there are some people who are a bit cowboyish. So it's just like making sure that you feel like you found the right person, or getting the skill yourself. Yes. Because if you get the skill yourself, no one can pull cotton wool over your eyes, which is a really big kind of piece of the puzzle for me. I feel like I've recently been training a lot of businesses and they have agencies, and I'm just training them so they can read the metrics, they can make decisions and not have this whole reliance on their agency. Yeah. Gives them a bit of flexibility, you know?
You're paying for that risk tolerance, right? The surgeon example, you can use the same analogy for a pilot.
Absolutely, yeah.
For risk, you're reducing the risk that can come
Correct.
to your business.
Correct.
And especially in ads.
Yeah.
You don't want to be putting thousands, sometimes millions of dollars
Correct.
down the drain on
Correct.
ads and not getting a return.
This is like, okay, so one time I found this lady who was running her own ads. She came to us and wanted us to audit her ad account. I was like, of course. And she said she was spending $60,000 a month. And I was like, why don't you have an agency? She's like, oh, I don't trust agencies. You know, I had an agency once, I did a shit job, so now I'm going to do it myself. And I was like, fair enough. Good on you. You're training yourself. That's great. I got in the ad account though, and I was like, this lady is spending $60,000 a month terribly. Like she's getting results like a 1 to a 2 ROAS, being that return on investment, when she could be getting a 6 to an 8 return on investment. So she could be making an extra $200,000-$300,000 a month by passing it to a correct agency. Right? So there's that decision-making process. I think if you've ever got an ads budget like under 10 grand, it makes so much sense to do it yourself, because paying an agency $4,000 a month, you know, you're basically eating into your spend. Yeah. But if you've got big budget, 15, 20, 50, 75, 100K, there is in no business model an excuse for the founder to be running the ads. Like that's just actually a waste of their time. That would be like me in my business right now running, you know, some sort of maybe like the bookkeeping function and being like, well, I'm saving $200 a week. Yeah. but my time is worth more in my business, right? So I think paid performance, like, I guess there's multiple angles here. You should definitely be doing it. How you do it depends on your budget. If you've got like an under 10K budget, go and learn how to do it yourself, because you will do a great job with that money. You'll be able to, it's not as risky. You've got more time to optimize, right? Whereas you're spending 50 grand a month, you're chewing through nearly 2 grand a day, right? So you don't have the time or the luxury to be like, does that work? Is that working for me? You know, whereas if you're spending $20 a day, $30 a day, you can have a few days of being like, oh, that was good. All right, now I'll change that ad over, right? And then second of all, obviously, if you're going to do it yourself, you want to make sure someone's still at least supporting you. Like, you've got someone in your corner who can be like, that was a good decision. Yeah. Or like they can read the metrics just while you it's like get your training wheels off, you know? Yeah. After a few months, you'll be feeling great. I feel I've got so many clients that I've consulted to help them learn, and they're running their own ads. And after 6 months, I'm like, whoa, you want a job at my agency? Like, you're doing such a great job, right? So, but it's all in context. I think probably the feedback here would be, do performance ads, but just work out whether it's best to pass it to someone like an expert, or whether it's better to train yourself and do it yourself. Because I think there's benefits and pros and cons to both.
As it is with everything.
Yeah, for sure, without a doubt.
So you've generated over $1 billion in revenue for your clients over the years.
Yep.
What are the campaigns that you're most proud of?
Oh, I love this. We have worked with so many brands, right? Like, people always be like, have you ever worked with an interior brand? I'm like, let me think. I have to go back like through the years, right? Because I obviously know my current clients like the back of my hand, but as soon as someone like moves on from the agency, it's not like they disappear, but my brain just goes, all right, another slot for someone else now. Like, you've just got to focus on the clients that you've got. I think for me, there's been a couple of brands that have been like, I'm going to call it more like pivotal in the business. Like, maybe we've run campaigns for these brands during pivotal times for our business. So it's like left an impression on me. Sure. I'm really proud. We used to work with a brand, and we actually still work with the founder now, but in a different business. We used to work with a fashion brand out of the city or out of Southeast Melbourne called Fro Tribe. And Amy was a superstar, and she was so entrusting of us. And it was a really great brand for us to win, because this was probably in our 3rd year of business, and it was a well-known women's fashion store. And I was like, this is a great opportunity. It was also fashion, which we loved. And we did some really great work for Fro Tribe in paid ads, and made some great revenue for the business. And I was really proud of that. And then probably in like year 5 or 6, we also had a client called Banging Body come to us, and Priscilla, who was the founder, she was such a powerhouse, and she knew what she wanted, and she came to me and she presented. She's like, this is where I want to take the business. And it was probably the first client that we'd had that was very like almost like open budget. Not that she had an open budget just to go down the drain, but she's like, what do I need to spend to make my business like this in the next 6 to 12 months? And I told her, and she's like, oh my God, that's like a lot of money. And she risked her house deposit on these ads and this business, but it paid off in tenfold. So I'm really proud of that, because we worked with her business in a real holistic manner. So we were doing like not only the paid performance piece, but everything that went into that. So we were doing like the content, so the photos and the UGC and the graphics and all these types of other things that went into the paid performance. And her business went on to be like a Forbes recognized business. Wow. So I feel very proud of that, because that was very transformative style work. In fact, we've actually had a lot of clients, and it's like been such a rewarding thing, come through the agency and, work with us for 2 or 3 years, and then outgrow us, as in like, because we're doing such a good job through their ads, they now are like, oh my God, we need to hire a whole entire graphic design team, logistics team, bring it in-house, because they've got like this beast that's going out of control. And I'm really proud of that. So I also think a couple of years ago, we worked with a brand called Gem, who I admired. Georgia, again, you're probably seeing a very consistent pattern here, that when these brand founders come to us and they're so entrusting, we're able to make really good outcomes, because they're like, we trust you. And so there's none of this kind of like micromanagement. But yeah, even with Gem, we had so much fun. We did so much of that business across, again, a variety of different kind of marketing functions. And yeah, their business has gone from strength to strength. They're stocked in Mecca and Priceline now, like all these amazing retailers. They had such great kind of brand recognition that these doors were able to open. So I think, over $1 billion in e-com revenue, and there'd be even more revenue attributed to like in-store purchases. So where brands have seen the ads online and gone in sort of Chemist Warehouse or Priceline or wherever it be. Sure. But yeah, I'm very proud of that. But I think those 3 brands kind of stand out to me, and maybe because of the way in which they've come into our business at a pivotal time, but we've also gone into their business at a pivotal time and been able to create some really freaking fabulous outcomes, change their lives basically. Yeah. And that's really, I've had other clients message me saying I've changed their lives for the best, and that's so rewarding. But yeah, these ones stand out the most to me.
So the one that stood out the most there, Priscilla. So
yes.
She came to you with an open floor plan essentially.
Basically, yeah. So her business was like 3 or 4 weeks old when she came to me. And she formulated Australia's first firming lotion, which is very niche, but we love niche products. They do very well online. And she basically was like, I'm with an agency now. They don't get it. I need someone. She was recommended to us through an industry connection. She's like, I need someone who can, you know, take this by the reins and take it to where it needs to be. And she basically was like, this is where I am. This is where I need to be. I want to be making this much per day. What's your strategy plan? What's your approach? And I think she was shocked when I was like, this is how much you have to spend. I think she was like, oh my God, but she just trusted the process.
So she started with the end in mind. This is where I want to get to.
Yeah.
Didn't worry about, this is what I'm willing to spend day to day.
No, she's like, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
What does it take? Like from your experience, what do I need to do?
And do you see a lot of clients when they first come to you, they're saying we're willing to spend this
Correct.
much instead of saying this is the end goal.
Correct. And I love this concept because I often refer to it as the opportunity concept, right? Or opportunity cost. So say a client's like, we want to be making $100,000 a month and they're currently making 10 grand a month. And then we say, okay, well, it's going to cost you 5 grand to work with us and you're going to need 20 grand ad spend, let's say, right?
So each month.
Yeah. So say that we're like, it's going to cost you 25 grand to get to 100 grand. And they're currently making, 10 grand. They'll be like, it's just too expensive. Like, we can't afford that. I flip that and say, you actually can't afford not to work with us because you're not going to get to 100 grand. And if you do try and do that through your own pathway and not through a strategic partner with clear understanding of what it takes, you're going to take 5 years to get there when you could have got there in 3 months under our guidance. Yeah. So and look, I know there's this hesitation because it sometimes sounds too good to be true. Like spend 25 grand, make 100 grand. But it actually is that simple because especially with paid performance, it's metrics. It's data. Like it's literally there's calculations, there's formulations for this. People don't realize that, I don't think.
You're not going in blind.
No, and I think, correct. And we've done it 500 plus times. Yeah. So it's like a surgeon. Like he knows how to perform heart surgery. A builder knows how to build a house. Well, good builders and good surgeons. We're a good marketing agency. We know how to do it, right? We've done this for 10 years nearly. So I think, again, it comes back to that risk and reward piece, right? But yeah, Priscilla knew what she wanted. And we helped her achieve that. And that was really fulfilling. And other brands, I think some of the biggest roadblocks is when there's micromanagement, even from like an ad content perspective. So brands will be like, oh no, we don't ever, do lo-fi video. It's like, okay, that's fine, but it will do well because that's what the algorithm, that's not what we prefer. That's sometimes what Meta prefers.
That's what people want to see.
Correct. So like, let's lean into that, right? And some people find that like hard to fathom because they're like, oh no, our brand doesn't do lo-fi. It's like, okay, but then you're going to make less on your ads because I know your brand doesn't like that, but Meta likes that. And that's your beast you're feeding at the moment, So, I would definitely say that Meta is very transformative, and so is obviously our work, but you just need to have they need to have less control over it. You wouldn't ever though walk into a building site when your builder's building and be like, what's these nails?
No.
Why are you using this brand? Why would you use that timber? Like you would never do that. But I understand where the skepticism has come from in our industry because like I said before, there are a lot of cowboys. So when there's a lot of cowboys, people become apprehensive.
Yes.
And they don't know if they can trust you. Like why would they trust me? They don't know me from a bar of soap. And I feel like that's why in our space, in our industry in particular, networking is really important. A lot of our work comes from word of mouth referrals, which I love always because it's very positive. And they've had one of our clients said we've had a really good experience. This brand comes in, they're a bit more trusting. Brands that find us maybe just like on their own accord, they've got their walls up a little bit. I like to think of the first few months as like dating. It's like, you're getting to know someone like, are you going to screw me over or are you going to be a good person? I know we're a great person, but people can't have that faith in us if they've especially come to us from being burnt in other places. I get frustrated about the whole industry sometimes, to be honest, and even to the point where I don't even want to call myself an agency anymore because I'm like, we're then getting kind of lumped in with these we're getting lumped in with this stigma. But I feel like if some people could just like piss off and like stop doing bad service to clients or to businesses, there'd be less kind of issues in our industry. I actually one time hired a girl who worked in my business. She came from another agency. This is the only person that I will never do this again. See, learnings. And I thought she'd be brilliant for our business. And she was a lovely person, like nothing wrong with her personality or her skill set. But what was a big red flag to me was when she started, she was working in our sales or business development side of the business, pardon me. And we were talking about her previous agency. I'd say like, okay, so what were like your kind of filters for a brand? Like, how would you work out who's a good fit? Because I was trying to show her how we work out who's a good fit for us. And she just looked at me. She's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, oh, we just would take on anyone if they could afford our retainer. And I was like, actually speechless, because I was like, that is just such bad business practice. It's like we're taking on work that you're not actually going to be able to do a good job of, but just because they can pay. Yeah. And it was at that point in time that I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense now why clients are just getting burnt left, right and center, because people don't actually care. And so it's hard. But I guess my mum would always say the saying, like there are some people at night will sleep bent, whereas you can sleep straight. So I'm not having to go to bed with any kind of like bad feeling, like I'm not screwing anyone over. I can just go to bed at night, and sleep well. Cool. I sleep very deep actually. So considering everything, it's good.
You touched on the pride that you have in your team that you built up over the last 9 years.
Yes.
What do you think actually makes Chain differentiate from everyone else? Team, I love this. Everyone says team, and that's a universal thing.
Of course.
But what is it, the actual element that makes you different and sets you apart?
I love this. So, well, I do genuinely believe it's our team, but maybe I'll deepen why I think that. So we have definitely made a bazillion errors over the years hiring the wrong people, and I have started to work out what the perfect Chain employee looks like. Like I've perfected it. So the Chain employee is a really, really passionate marketer with at least 5 to 10 years experience. So they're coming in with a seniority. Like people don't realize we only have one junior in our whole entire team.
Wow.
The rest of the team is senior. My wage bill is through the roof, but it's worth it because we have so much client retention off the back of the skill sets being so strong. So one is someone with 5 to 10 years industry experience. 2, it's also a personality type that is evidently here to be a team player. So we have over the years had people come in who were just so there for themselves. They were in this like isolated, like I'm here for me, that's all I care about. And because I run Chain like a family, that model doesn't work. In a traditional corporate environment, that would work because you would suck up your boss's ass, you'd get promotions, or you'd fight to flip promotions. It doesn't work like that at Chain. Everyone is on their own individual trajectory, their own individual job trajectory or career trajectory. So you don't need to bolster someone down to get ahead. And so I then look for people who are, very, very genuine, empathetic, hardworking. And you can see that in both their career history. Like if they jump around every year, to me, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
I definitely am not discouraged if someone's left a job, in 6 months, because I'll ask them why, obviously, and then they'll explain. If it's been a bad environment or it wasn't what they thought, you can't ever judge that. But when I see someone's career, like folio being jumping around every 9 months to 12 months, I know all they're doing is hopping to get the next pay rise and they're not looking at the long game. I also like to think the Chain employee is someone who's looking at the long game. The reason why this is important, and we do ask our team, like, what are you looking for? What actually will satisfy you in your role? Is because in our industry, like I said before, in our early years, it was very hard to retain clients because team members would leave, clients would leave, because clients, it's like going to a hairdresser. You become attached to the person, right? And so we now look for people who are looking for a more secure move, as in like they want to find a place where they don't have to jump around to get the pay rise. So we give very frequent pay rises, or they don't have to jump around to get the skill set because we do weekly and bi-weekly training. They don't have to jump around to get, end of financial year rewards or epic Christmas parties. They don't have to jump around to find flexibility because we offer that too. So I think because of the set of benefits we offer, we then attract people who are looking for the long game, right? So then the long game impacts our business and sets us apart because clients can have the same account manager for 3 years plus, right? So they feel like they've basically got an internal employee. We also look for people who we would say would fit into our culture. It's very controversial, my approach in this, because I hire for culture first, skill set second. And I can benefit from the fact that these people have 5 to 10 years experience. So I'm not hiring juniors with no experience. So when I say culture first, they obviously still do have skills, but I know we are going to have to train them the way chain does things anyway. So I'll look for culture first. Culture first, like I said, a person who is a genuine person, doesn't want the drama, here for the long run. And because I also don't want to upset the apple cart. We have this perfect, just business of people that just get along. Everyone just gets along. There's no cliques, any issues. So we don't want to let any kind of toxic people in. And then, to be honest, I also a lot of businesses are really threatened by hiring people in childbearing ages or young mothers, right? They're worried about the productivity. They're worried about the efficiency. I would actually have to debunk that. I think women, not just people, women who want to have a family and know that we can offer career progression whilst they can also hand in hand have a family, mean that we get more out of our stuff. We get longevity, we get satisfaction. And then the reason why chain benefits from that is because our clients get happy, rewarded, remunerated, long-standing employees who are very freaking talented. Because we're going back to the point before, what makes us different, we also train our staff. So a lot of places will be like, just get in, jump on the tools, off you go. Whereas I'm always hiring before we even need them. So I'm hiring and then training them so that then they're ready when a client comes in the door, rather than not backfilling work. So no one's ever just kind of getting chucked in the deep end. So we have a couple of employees at the moment who have been with us for 6 months now and are hardly billable because I've just been training them and making sure they understand how we communicate, the way we do things, the way we run ads, etc. And then the other thing is we have really, really, really clear and if not strict HR policies. So there's a no tolerance to dickheads, basically. And so then if there ever was someone who's going to let the business down, they're out the
Straight
door.
away.
They're out the door. What's the saying? It's like hire slow, fire fast. And I couldn't agree with that more. Not that I'm this kind of maniac who's like, you're fired, you're fired. I think I've fired 2 people in 9 years. And that's pretty good. But when they're wrong, they're wrong. And so I'm like, you need to get out because it can seep into the business culture. And so, I think the reason why chain is different, like I said, my team and our skill set. I also think the fact that we've got, nearly a decade of experience in this space, that provides us this folio that is incomparable to anyone else's folio. Like a brand in the fashion, beauty, lifestyle, e-com space would come to our website and be like, why would we go elsewhere? We often, we ask on our inquiry lead form, what made you inquire? Because I'm just so curious. I'm like, what was it? Was it a friend? Was it? And 90% of the time it's your folio. They're going, we like that you've worked with this brand, so we want to tap into your brain. So that's our competitive advantage, I think, And also that I'm still involved in the business. So a lot of the clients still get that kind of my touch coming through their campaigns. I'm not front facing to clients anymore, but I work really closely with my girls. So a lot of my psycho ideas, because I'm very big picture, let's go, the sky's the limit. Actually, no, the moon's the limit. That then translates through the girls when we're presenting back ideas and stuff.
The account manager longevity is
so important.
So important.
I know.
I've got a client, they had a web SEO agency that they worked with, a national client, so they were based on Gold Coast, Brisbane, this marketing agency they were working with. And they had an account manager there for something like 10 or 14 years. And in the past 9 months, that account manager has left. And they have all these things that need to be done for their website, for their SEO. And they're like, it's not happening. Why is nothing being...
And they won't be able to... They have to then go and now re-communicate who their brand is.
So they've called up this office. We're working on it. And they said, no more. Off you go. So they've gone
because of that,
stepped away from this business that they've been with for 10, 14 years, whatever the number was. And now they're looking elsewhere.
And it makes sense, though, because this has been the biggest kind of thing in our business, was in the early days, and it will still continue on. If a team member leaves, they're not only just leaving behind the personal relationship with the client, but all of their memory and knowledge around what works for the client. Like, so sometimes that just can't be relayed in handover notes.
Yeah.
And then the client gets frustrated because like I now have to literally reintroduce you to my brand. So it's a very big focus in my business. Like we really look after our team because we want to, but also because commercially it's better for everyone. It's better for them. They get great happiness out of their work. Our clients have a great experience. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
You know, that's like you said, that's actually, it's not possible to run a successful digital creative agency with high staff turnover. It's not possible.
Yeah. What are you seeing out there at the moment in the industry, and specifically beauty, lifestyle, fashion that you work with?
Yep.
And e-com more particularly, of course, as well. What are you seeing out there and trends at the moment?
Okay, from a marketing perspective?
From a marketing perspective.
Okay, so, and this is going to sound so ironic given our conversation, but we're seeing a lot of in-person experience coming back to life. It doesn't mean digital doesn't have the place anymore. Like paid performance, like I said, I will still die on that hill. That is the best, most powerful, most instantaneous outcome, marketing outcome. But we're seeing a lot of consumers demand in-person experiences. It's kind of ironic because like retail is becoming like a place again, but I don't mean like traditional retail. I mean like experiential retail. We're also seeing a lot of brands actually becoming more personalized with their customers. So this can be both front and back end. So back end, all their automations, making it sure it's personalized. They're not doing like a one size fits all send to everyone in their database because that doesn't work. People get pissed off. They're like, I don't want to hear about your new arrivals because I shopped them last night. Like, can you imagine that? Like, how frustrating that would be, right?
Incredibly frustrating.
So we're finding that personalization and segmentation is important. That happens in the back end through things like automations, but in the front end, like customer loyalty and customer service teams that have access to software like AI software that basically there's plenty of them out there now that like, let's say a live chat. Say I write to a business on live chat and I say, hey, like, I've received my top and it's black and it was meant to be red, right? Let's say they say that.
Sure.
Automatically, these AI softwares can pull every single conversation that you have ever had, your business has ever had with them on Instagram, through email. So you can actually see a full transcript.
Wow.
So you can be like, oh, hi, Jamie. Yeah, I know you spoke to Alice yesterday about this. So it feels like the client or the customer feels like they've had this, wow, they really do care about me because they've like spoken internally about it when actually it's just a transcript, right? So that's that personalization. And on the top of that, like I said, that customer service, really nurturing that. So a lot of big brands and even like my e-com brands are now focusing on nurturing our customers over influencers. So where influencers used to have this really genuine impact in businesses, it's really died off. And I think that's because of a couple of things. One, it's saturated. Two, there's this disingenuous like feeling around influencers, because if influencers for so long, people now know they're just getting paid to say something. So you're like, I don't care what you have to say because it actually doesn't influence me anymore. And that's why a lot of influencers are turning to create their own brands and stuff where they don't have to do a lot of this paid like sponsored content. That's a conversation for another day. But we're seeing a movement where brands are now making customers feel like influencers. So brands are sending customers PR kits. Brands are sending customers gifts with their orders and things. So the customer feels more nurtured and more like a VIP, which I think is really important. And there's a few brands out of Europe and the UK that are doing a great job. One of them is called Refi. It's a beauty brand. I'm obsessed with what they do for their customers. Like their product range is actually quite simple. It's not anything revolutionary. What is revolutionary is how they present their products to market and how they nurture their community and basically make sure their community comes first with everything. So I think that's a really big trend. I think basically just human interaction. If you listen to those two things, in-person experiences and customer loyalty and personalization, that is all to do with a customer feeling some sort of connection, which kind of leads me to my next point where brands now, I think people are starting to realize that brands are people and people are brands. Yeah. And there's not this huge separation like we used to think there is. And a lot of people will make decisions to buy from a brand because of the people in the brand opposed to just the brand. And I honestly feel this is why so many dinosaur retailers are just going to collapse. Half the shops you see inside, big shopping centres in the next 5 to 10 years will not exist because they're not adapting. They just think this traditional retail model where they're just this mass company with 70 stores Australia-wide works, and it actually doesn't because when you're that scaled with like 70 stores, unless you've got the most incredible new age operational system in place, if you're still operating off dinosaur CRM, dinosaur processes, you've got 10 layers of approvals to get any budget to do anything, you're just not going to be able to keep up. And we've seen that. I always liken it to like, think about even taxis and Uber, you know, even think about it with like Blockbuster and Netflix.
Classic example.
These brands get stuck in this mindset that like they're just so big and strong that nothing can touch them, forgetting that their customer is the only reason why they exist.
Yeah.
Right. So they think they exist because of their brand. They actually exist because of their customer. And so you need to be so in tune with what the customer's looking for. And that's why these new brands are coming along and becoming multi-million-dollar brands quite quickly, because they're talking to the consumer. They're talking to the customer. They're meeting the needs. They're being personalized. And these big brands are just basically leaving that all on the table. Yeah. You know? So personalization, customer experience, really big. And you can incorporate that into like paid marketing too. So you could have like your founder, like your brand founder on your ads, you know, that's personalizing the experience. People go, oh, like you just get to know the person more.
Especially if the founder's already a somewhat well-known individual as well.
Yeah, and you don't even need to be well-known. Like I tell all my clients, get behind the camera. Get behind the camera. I don't care if it's lo-fi, it's professional. Introduce why you started your business. People love to have that connection, that emotional connection. I would prefer to pay someone that I know than I don't know.
Yeah.
I think like you just always do. It's just like a human. It's like a human response to things.
Familiar.
Yeah, it's familiar. So, and you feel like you're supporting someone rather than a commercial entity. So I think that's the biggest threat, and then the biggest opportunity to be gained by a lot of businesses. And also, if we think about these big businesses, they used to survive because they have these $1 million budgets. So they'll buy all the billboards, they buy the newspapers, and basically no other small business could compete. Whereas we're in 2025. A small business can start ads today with a $50 budget and be taking the real estate of that big company, taking the customers off that company. And I think it's almost like leveled the playing field, to be honest, which I think is it's exciting.
Yeah.
And it has been evolving into that space for years and years, but it's even more dominant now. So
it's interesting that you touched on influencers and their downgrade in popularity over the most recent years. I do a lot of analysis on big video campaigns that brands have done. Of course, we had the Super Bowl a couple months ago.
Yes.
Always a big time of year for videos.
Yeah.
One of the examples that came out of that where people just hounded on this brand for using influencers, Poppy. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Oh, yeah, Poppy. With Alex Earle.
Yep. The carbonated drinks and all that. They got absolutely hit on social media because alongside their video campaign they did for the Super Bowl, they went and put out 32
the fridges, wasn't it?
Fridges, vending machines to all these influencers across the world to promote their product. And all the customers were saying, hey, these guys didn't get you here. We got you to where you are now.
That conversation was
why have you
pivotal.
used these guys?
Correct. I love that conversation. And also people were providing commentary because TikTok's created this place for criticism, which I love because brands get real-time feedback. You're like, oh shit, people don't like this. Like with those fridges, they could have done something amazing. They could have sent that to shelters. They could have sent it to like even just public shopping centres so people would have free drink, right?
Yeah.
Which is then an experience for customers, but also sampling opportunity. Instead, they sent this fridge where these people aren't even keeping the goddamn fridge. Like, it was stupid. It was so out of touch. And I think that comes back to that. Yeah, like you said, the consumers are like, well, we're sick of seeing these influencers get paid, our monthly salary in a day, and we're sick of them just talking shit, and we're sick of them not even being the ones that support your brand to get where you are, and we don't get a look in. And so they would have been better off even sending it to their top 32 customers. Pull out the database and be like, these across the country, these are our top. Imagine that surprise and delight. And I think those traditional important customer service pieces get left off the table with these big brands because they get like tunnel vision. They're like, influencer. It's like, no, it's so out of touch. And I think consumers in particular are moving away from trusting and supporting influencers. And so brands need to act very carefully. There's still a place. We like to say in our agency, we call there's influencers and there's influentials. So influentials are actually, they could be small community. They could be a small Instagram following of 10,000 people, but maybe they talk about being a mother and breastfeeding, right? So now they are the right influential to lean into to sell like a lactating cookie because that audience trusts that person with their life because they've built this organic engagement off the back of this topic with no sponsored content, right? But if you've got a mum who's just a mum with a million influencers, none of her audience is going to give a shit if she talks about lactating cookies. And I'm sorry, I just realised, one, we're talking about lactating cookies, but two, we're swearing on here. And so they're going to spend $20,000 probably to get that sponsored post. It's going to do nothing.
Yeah.
When they could have probably spent $500, change someone's perception on their value in this influencer space, and got sales. And I think that's just the mindset. But then again, it comes back to like, how do brands know this if they haven't worked in the space for a long time? They're not seeing the shift. So they think they're doing the right thing. They're like, we'll do influencer marketing because that's what everyone does. And they're not realizing, again, comes back to that experience. But yeah, we're very big on finding the perfect balance of like the right niched down influencer for our client, or influential, shall I say, so that our client gets the best outcome. Be that the right community engagement, the right association. To this day, we obviously offer social media management as well. And to this day, we have never had any of our clients get strife on social media. Like, not one of our clients has ever been pulled through the mud for an influencer, social, or paid campaign we've run, because we're very in touch with one, their consumers, because like I said before, that's why our brand works, because we are the customer, but two, we're very socially up to date. So like, I would be able to warn a client very quickly, like, that is not a good move. I would not recommend, Some clients sometimes are like, oh, there's a natural event, say there's a cyclone, let's do like a 30% off. I'm like, no way are we trying to commercialize a natural disaster. Like,
not a good move.
We're not going to assign. I don't care if you think that's supporting, whatever, you're going to give 10% of your profits back. Just donate 10% of your profit. Privately and quietly. You don't need to virtue signal, and you don't need to commercialize it. So yeah, we've been very lucky to run a decade without having any of our clients get pulled through the mud, which, like I said, happens quite frequently. Like you would have seen with Poppy, they got absolutely reamed. Yeah. I'd hate to be the marketing manager or the influencer marketing manager, definitely. Because their boss, like because they're obviously a huge company with boards, they'd be like, "What is wrong with you?" But just out of touch,
I like how you've brought that little bit of a different perspective. A lot of the time you hear for socials in particular, you've got to be in the know of what's happening and what's changing and the trends that are shifting.
Yep.
But in reality, it's not so much you need to be aware of what trends are happening. It's about what are your customers wanting to see, what are they not wanting to hear. Correct. And following that trend, if you want to call it a trend.
Yeah, well, I would say it's behaviour, right?
Behaviour, correct.
So like with like Blockbuster Video Easy, the trend was that customers were wanting to watch movies in the comfort of their home without having to go and borrow a DVD and possibly scratch it and then pay a bloody scratch fee, or like forget to return it and get late fees. Customers wanted convenience. And so Netflix saw that and offered convenience, and instead of Blockbuster being like, that's a consumer behaviour switching, they just believed that their product would survive that, or their brand would survive that. And so, same to your point, brands don't need to necessarily know what is the latest TikTok dance to do. They need to genuinely be in touch with what the consumer and the market wants them to do, right? So if the consumers don't want to buy, products made out of China anymore, and the brand's like, well, we can't afford not to produce, in China, it's like, well, you actually can't afford not produce in China. Yes. Like, you have to produce in Australia or you'll have no business. I have a perfect example of this. I worked with a high-end fashion brand for a very, very long time. Amazing person, but she just would not listen to what I was saying about offering returns. Like, you have to offer returns, a good return policy in this day and age, and even more so when you're selling thousands of dollars worth of dresses and blazers, right? Yeah. Someone's spending $2,000 on a blazer. They want the consumer wants to know that if it doesn't fit, excuse me, I can return it for a credit note, refund, whatever it may be. Swap it, right? This client of mine would refuse to offer a refund. 7-day credits, that's it, right? And I understand where she was coming from, because she was saying, like, our cash flow could not afford that, right?
Right, so it was a cash flow problem.
Yeah, but I'm like, your cash flow can't afford not to do it, because now, I mean, we don't work with them anymore, but for the years that we worked with them, they're trending downwards, because every other brand in market that competed with them would offer like 30-day returns, styling appointments, right? The consumer wants that. If you don't give it just because your cash flow is affected more by not offering it. And like the volume you've lost on ads and other marketing mediums because you don't have that. Like you might have lost $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 of sales a month. So yes, you may lose some to returns, but you're going to be up. And it would just drive me insane because I'm like, what's the even point of running the ads if you're not going to actually adjust your product to what the consumer wants or you're offering? And so I guess our conversation, like around just being really aware of what the consumer wants. There was this research that Australia posted multiple years ago, and they've probably got even more up-to-date research now around free shipping. Consumers want free shipping. It was like 79% of customers will not buy a product if they get to cart and they have to pay for shipping. So I say to clients then, because the client was like, well, we can't afford to give away free shipping. I'm like, well, you can't afford not to give away free shipping. So let's think about this strategically. Can you build in some of the cost of your product? The next drop, the next time you bring out a product, could you price it at $4 or $5 more so you build value around the product rather than value around the shipping? Because no one's going to ever believe that I should pay $10 for shipping. They would prefer to pay $100 for a jumper than $90 for a jumper, not even knowing that shipping was never included. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
I just feel like, and that's a simple thing a brand could do for understanding what consumers want. Because knowing that 79% will not check out if there is a shipping fee means that 79% of your carts are going, nah, forget about it. You've lost 79% of your possible sales.
Yeah.
It's that opportunity cost conversation again, I think,
Definitely.
So brands just really need to adapt or listen and not be stubborn, because the stubbornness does not allow you to grow, and it certainly won't win your business. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen and don't be stubborn. Very key
and
words to lessons.
Absolutely. And understand your opportunity costs. Because yes, you're going to have to pay for shipping, but you're also at the same time going to gain $100,000 sales.
Yeah.
Or 79% more sales. I think it's just strategically looking at it. We often tell clients when they're apprehensive to run it for a month and just see the impact. And they see the impact, they go, yeah, it's all good. We'll keep free shipping running. Because they see they're already investing money into ads. They're investing money into us. Why would you make it hard for people to shop? Like, wouldn't you want to get more out of your already paid investment?
Exactly right.
It's wild. It's wild, yeah.
You touched on some very exciting news at the start of the show around Fiji.
Yeah,
that's
I'm so
coming
excited.
up in May, correct?
Yeah.
You're heading over there. That's all part of your e-commerce academy and your masterclasses, correct?
It is, yeah. So basically, we last year did masterclasses around Australia for Meta Ads. We taught 550 businesses. We then concurrently launched like an online training platform because we realized also that there are communities that we're not ever going to travel to do masterclasses. Just commercially doesn't make sense. For example, I can't make it to Canberra. I don't have enough time in my day, right? So we're like, we'll put an online training platform so these brands can still tap into us. And we also saw this need where brands were like, I want to learn and do it myself because I don't have the budget for an agency. So we're like, well, let us give you professional training. Yeah. So we did that, but then we had a bit of a internal session at the end of last year, being like, what does next year look like? And we knew we were going to do more masterclasses in person because we do enjoy doing those and having that face-to-face interaction. We knew we were going to expand our online training. But there was a conversation where we're like, well, why don't we do an international retreat? Why don't we do basically all the online training? So like Meta Ads, Google Ads, Pinterest Ads, email marketing, social media. Why don't we do it on a retreat? And at first I was like, oh, that is so ballsy because, a ticket to a masterclass for a one-day thing versus paying 10 times that to go to a retreat. Like we're now asking for a complete different financial investment. We're also asking people to leave behind family, work commitments, travel overseas. I was like, there are a lot of barriers to entry here. But we also knew that no one else had done this, and it's so very chain spec to be like, well, screw it. And so I did some risk analysis, like what is the minimum amount of people we would need so that we don't lose money off this, because the irony of the situation is when we did our Euro content tour in 2023, we lost $80,000 because I did not budget things correctly and work out. Like there were so many hidden costs that I hadn't accounted for, like internal transfers. There was 7 of us on the tour. Every time we needed to get a van anywhere in Europe, it was 100 to 200 euros. And we were using them twice a day. I didn't account for the volume of food we would, like just so many things, right? So it was a very expensive mistake. And so although it was so fun and it was 3 weeks of sun and partying and taking photos and doing all this stuff, commercially didn't make sense. And so coming back to my risk profile where I'm like, I have 25 people that rely on me. I cannot be throwing money down the drain. We decided, great, let's look at it. And I decided that the risk was minimal and that we would, even if we only got X amount of people, we would still do it. It would break even. And that even if we only got a couple of people, we would still only have a small loss.
Yeah.
So I was like, to me, it felt natural. And so, yeah, we decided to launch a digital marketing retreat in Fiji for a whole week in this luxury 5-star resort. We managed to get a really great deal with them on accommodation, which meant that we were able to provide this attainable luxury to our clients where basically their fee to attend the retreat is normally what they would just pay for the accommodation there.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's very good.
Yeah, so we've made it really palatable in pricing. We offered payment plans. We've put the best curriculum together. There's nine people from my team going. We're offering one-on-ones there, so brands can also have that one-on-one touch point. And I'm really excited. We only have 4 rooms left now. So
wow.
I know, like me at the end of last year being like, oh my God, I hope this pays off. Like, holy moly, to now where I'm like, wow, great. I don't mind if those 4 rooms don't get filled. It just means that people that are attending are going to get more intimate approach from us. We're already keeping it intimate anyway. Like we already capped it at 30 attendees because we want the environment to be high networking, high value, where people feel like they can ask questions. And if you went to our masterclass last week, that was 42 people. And we felt that, 30 is that sweet spot where people can get comfortable enough to ask questions and get personalized kind of assistance. So we're very excited. That's in May. And I'm equally as crazy as I am ambitious. So we now are already talking about our next international retreat and trying to work out where that will be and likely in like August or September this year. So, and we're going to pair it in with Black Friday because like I said, most of our business is in that e-com space. Yeah. And so pairing it back into Black Friday will be great. But anyway, we're crazy and it's very exciting. And I think the people that are attending are going to have the best week. The feedback we get from our masterclasses is so positive. I can only imagine that having that more intense 5 days together, they'll just get so much value out of it.
Just compound.
And the network, right?
Oh, exactly right.
Like there are so many amazing marketers and brand founders coming. And I hope that everyone becomes like this little bestie group where we're actually about to start like a WhatsApp chat with everyone, get them to start talking and introduce themselves. So by the time we get there, everyone's familiar with who each other is, Be good.
Makes a big difference, that familiarity. I went on a little film camp in 2023.
Yes.
And it was myself and my mentor, Mount Eliza. Yeah. And he's like, we're going to hire a bus and we're going to just pick up 10 people from the airport
that are
all going. And then we'll drive the 2.5 hours into
so
regional
clever because you can actually talk
and get to know people. And if we didn't do that, it would have been so much more awkward rocking up at the camp with the other 50 people and be like, oh, g'day.
Yeah.
But everyone was joking around on the bus with the music pumping. It was such a good environment. And now everyone's friendly. One guy in particular, we went and filmed overseas together.
Wow, after it?
Afterwards, like 2 months afterwards, we got it all organised like that. And he's...
So network though.
Network,
yeah,
100%.
In your own space, in your own industry, that's invaluable. And I agree on getting that bus. Like that's just, it breaks the ice. Yeah. And everyone can start to get to know each other. So then by the time you actually get to the experience, there's none of the awkward like, oh, who are you? It's just like getting to know. It's just getting into the learnings and into the camp or the retreat or whatever it is, So no, very excited for that.
Awesome, Shelby. As we finish up this afternoon, I've got 2 questions for you. Ask every guest these 2 questions.
Okay, cool. I love this.
So first one is, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career as a marketer?
Yep.
And then the second one is, what one tip would you give to someone who's completely fresh to marketing?
Yep.
For them to improve by 1% today?
Okay, I love these questions. So my biggest learning, your first question, would actually be to get your legals in order. So in the last decade, I've been very lucky with a lot of things. I've also had some really big hiccups in the road. And I have ended up in... like, what am I going to call it? I've ended up being, well, there's no other word to say it, than sued a couple of times. Really far-fetched things, nothing ever intentional. And I've just learnt over the last decade that if we had had better contracts or better legals in place, we would have omitted those situations. So they were very expensive learning curves. And I feel like people think like legal agreements and things are very expensive. Again, it's the opportunity cost because it actually is worth its weight in gold, I would say, because you're not to know legals like a lawyer does. So just even having a consultation with them, like what kind of insurances, what do I need, right? Yeah. So that's my biggest tip. And that's quite dark and depressing, but I've learned so much from it. So I would say to any aspiring marketer or any person that runs a business, just check what legals you need and have them covered. And then what would I recommend to someone who wants to be better by 1%? So I always think back to how I got into this space, and it was training myself online. Like I was on YouTube training myself. Education is the most powerful tool in our industry. Your skill set and your education, like your knowledge, is worth more than anything else, right? So I would say invest into education, and that could be just investing time into finding things on YouTube. We are in the decade, or the era of knowledge being at our fingertips. TikTok, YouTube, whatever, you've got so much free resource. So find your missing gaps. Maybe it's paid performance, maybe it's copywriting, maybe it's email marketing, whatever it is, go and find free resources for it. Or if you are in the position, go and find training for it, paid training. It's obviously going to be different, but any increase in experience and knowledge is so valuable. And that would be my biggest piece of advice. And it sounds cliche, but there's actually, that is your currency.
Yeah.
It's your currency. So like I could go into other things, but that is your currency. And when I'm hiring someone, that's their currency. That's their negotiating power.
Yes,
so
definitely.
That's what I would say to do.
That is a phenomenal lesson learned and a fantastic piece of advice to move forward. And across all of our discussions today, the passion just runs through.
Or physically runs through me too. I turn hot.
And the lights don't help. The hot weather doesn't help. But irrespective if it was freezing in here and there was no lights on,
I'd be pumped.
It would still be going through the roof.
The histamine, it runs to my body. Yeah, because my body's like, this is so exciting. I think this is the kind of passion that people need to have, like I said, because you'll weather the storm happily. When I was going through litigation, it was a shitty time. And thankfully, it never ended up to be anything terrible. But, at the time you think the worst. But my love and passion was like, it's okay. We'll just get over this. We'll learn this is a big learning curve. There's so much new opportunity to come. So, yeah, it's very passionate. And I think I wouldn't have got out of bed or I wouldn't have faced that head on if I didn't have passion for it. I'd be like, I'll just throw the towel in.
Yeah.
People do this all the time. They go, we'll throw the towel in, go bankrupt, whatever. We'll just leave it all behind, whatever. And my body was like, nope. This is like my baby. It's like, I call it my baby. It's my second baby.
It is. Definitely.
I love it. Well, thank you for having me.
Shelby, thank you.
So good. I'm so glad we finally got to chat. And hopefully there's a lot for people to unpack and learn and just some insight.
I agree.
Be good.
Even if they can take only 1% away,
Correct.
it's going to be a massive improvement for their business going
absolutely.
forward, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much.